tonight is something different we've never done before. So we have a panel, and guys, we're talking about different types of housing construction that you can do, and we appreciate you tuning in tonight. This is a live broadcast. We all serve the housing industry, and people are becoming more aware now of energy efficiency, and for a lot of different reasons, they want to leave a good footprint on the planet. They want to save money. A lot of times, achieving energy efficiency is expensive, at least initially, to save. But we're also faced with a lot of people live in areas where it's just noisy. I mean, no matter where you live, it seems like you can hear traffic. We have airports near us. So we're constantly looking for ways to reduce the noise, the inside noise or the outside noise from the inside. And we're spending a lot more time at home now. So, we're concerned about things like healthier air quality. I know, since COVID, we've been adapting and setting up workspaces in our house. We're spending, sometimes it seems like, days inside. I know we do a lot from home. And depending on where you live, I mean, safety is important. I mean, we're talking about the hurricane right now, pounding winds, and a lot of times, depending on where you live, building materials. I mean, it's important that your house is built well and that it's a material that will withstand some of the bad weather it seems like we get across the country. And for many of you, you're looking for more unique styles, things that you can do to get away from the traditional architecture, so that you can kind of have a little bit of your personality or your touch to your home design, whether you're building a new house or adding additions and things like that. And tonight we're talking about 3 different types of home construction materials, just ways that you can construct a home or build an addition. One is ICF, which is basically an insulating concrete forms, a concrete house. I have a client of mine locally here in Maryland's building one of those right now. Barndominiums, depending on where you live, these are really popular, and it's growing in popularity. And we're going to talk about the tiny house, the shipping container house. So, and ways that you can incorporate that using multiple shipping containers. And really, you're going to have fun tonight. This is a live show. Like I said, we want your questions. So feel free to, bring them in. You can comment them. Guys, if you're listening to this post live, feel free to just comment your questions, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. I'm Todd Sachs. I'm your host tonight. I have a real estate brokerage here in Maryland. We serve buyers, sellers, tenants, and landlords with both residential and commercial transactions here in Maryland. But guys, if you're anywhere else in the country, I have an amazing broker network just about everywhere. So feel free to reach out if you need some real estate assistance, and I'll make sure to point you in the right direction. And we'll get started here. Let's meet our panel. We'll start with Michael. Michael, why don't you go ahead? You guys just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I've been around the steel building industry for many, many years, 40 or more. I started as a salesman with a steel building manufacturer and branched out onto my own and been running a consulting business for a good number of years. I'm currently associated with Steel Co. Buildings in Covington. And, the Barndo thing, you're right. It is really, it's a rage. People are just incredibly interested in them. We generate a great number of leads, probably, I'm going to say 5 or more a week. And we sell a good number of Barndos. And what's interesting about them is I've never really seen the use of our product in the residential market like it is being used now. And it's really exciting to see people express themselves. You mentioned something about the creativity and all of that, and we see that where owners of these barndominiums have really expressed their own unique characteristics in the way they design them and the final appearance. So it's an exciting wrinkle to the business that's really been going on for a while, and I'm excited about it because it's just something new to me. So we're having a good time with it.
That's great. Well, we appreciate you being here. Catalina.
I represent Cube Living, and we are a design project coordination firm. We specialize in shipping container structures recently we started venturing into steel modular construction because of the scarcity and cost of containers. But we are not fabricators. We work with fabricators across the country. And most of our marketplace is the West Coast, California. And I think the reason why people are starting to be a lot more attracted to this kind of build is, especially in this part of the world, the cost of building a home is astronomical. And going through this modular program with containers, we're able to come in quite a bit less than you would. And also a lot of the sustainable aspects of this build.
I'm excited to get into that. So people are definitely interested in that.
Alone, exactly.
Yeah. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, Steve Hostetter. I'm in Harrisonburg, Virginia, in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley. We do ICF construction, Insulated Concrete Forms, which is right here or there. Yeah.
That was magical.
Yeah. 2.5 inches of foam on both sides of a poured concrete wall for both foundations and all the way to the roof. You get your best energy savings if you go all the way to the roof. Yeah, so we are doing that type. We build custom homes also, but I am a dealer for Build Block brand ICFs out of Oklahoma City. We install as a subcontractor for other contractors, and then we also build homes ourselves.
Well, like I said, I'm in the middle. I have a client of mine right now that is building a ICF home, and for his brother, he's general contracting it. And I've been in the building industry for 32 years, and I got to tell you, this is the first time that I've seen anything really other than stick construction, wood frame construction for residential applications. In 32 years. And it's amazing because as I look out and, each one of you, you represent a growing number of construction projects residentially that we've just never seen before. And really once, I guess the lumber pricing went, over 400%, what it was prior to the pandemic, I think builders and even buyers were starting to look at, like, this is crazy, this is really now putting us into another level of cost. And I think that's when everyone started to really research of what types of other house construction can they use. And then I have a client of mine that's in Texas. He actually used to be in Maryland, and he was looking at buying, a Barndominium. So that was the first time also in the last year that I really was introduced to that type of construction as well. One of my contractor buddies here actually went down to Texas to assist him a little bit with, checking it out and inspecting it and things like that. So, but let's go ahead and get started. So, I guess being in the business, one of the big, blocks, that stands in the way of introducing these, new products across the country or to people that have never been introduced to these or, like zoning regulations and building codes and things like that, because you guys have a lot of work to do to, I won't say lobby, but I guess it is lobbying to get these, different jurisdictions to accept the product that you're building. And then I guess there's all kinds of other regulations like associations, homeowner associations, and things like that, that can block that more, than a traditional style home. So let's talk a little bit about it, because I'm curious. We're on the East Coast. Catalina, you're on the West Coast. Steve, you're close. And really, Michael, you're close too in the East Coast. And we're talking about products that are different to us here in Maryland, and I'm sure a lot of other states as well. So if you could just, Michael, we'll start with you. What type of roadblocks are you encountering or, breaking through to get the barndominium construction into areas that haven't been the traditional, like Texas and Arizona and things like New Mexico, maybe? Can you just tell us how you guys are working through that?
Well, on the residential side, we've actually been lucky because commercial steel buildings and using steel buildings for commercial applications has kind of paved the way for using steel buildings for residential. Actually, the code officials are an ally for us because in our industry they used to refer to a pre-engineered steel building, and really there hasn't been a pre-engineered steel building for a long, long time. All of our structures are custom engineered to the International Building Code, which is the model code for most of the United States, and all of the different state variations. They'll adopt certain characteristics of the code or add certain features to the code. And we have the ability to adapt to all of those things in our design process, which makes it very easy for our buyers to get permits from the building officials on a local level. Now, that all said, we do occasionally run into situations where the code officials or homeowners association, for example, with a barndominium, they don't want to use a steel siding, but that's not a problem for us because we can design and frame our buildings with all types of conventional siding materials, including hardy plank and the cement type siding, traditional siding, masonry construction. We can adapt our structure to any of those things and accommodate any situation where the owner is running up against a code that says it doesn't work. So it's really not a problem for us, and we often help our clients research that with the code official to make sure everything's good. We'll run into an occasional steep slope or small things, but it's really not an obstacle for us.
So are there any areas that you haven't been able to build a barndominium?
Well, I can't think of any areas where we wouldn't be able to. We have had a couple of clients, at the end of the process, not buy and on the basis of some problems they're having with code officials, but we've got factory mutual uplift certified for very high wind speeds for metal roofing systems. So the coastal United States is not a problem. Central United States is not a problem. Northern United States, where the snow loads are very heavy, is not a problem. So we're pretty versatile across the United States.
But you just said something interesting. So you said the slope.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess that poses a little bit of a different challenge, maybe or not.
No, really not. We can build almost flat roofs. About 1/4 and 12 is as low a slope as we like to build for water drainage.
I'm talking about more the topography.
Yeah.
Hilly areas, things like that. I mean, as long as you have a flat slab, you're good to go.
Yeah, and then the wind loads, they vary by the terrain that surrounds a structure or a house, and we handle all that through the compliance with the IBC code. They're very specific about the manner in which you design for wind, so we can adapt to that as well. We're really, like I said, we're very versatile with that. We're blessed to have that feature about our product.
Yeah. Catalina, how about you? Are you running into any issues with the shipping containers?
Less now, but and again, there's some areas in the country where city officials have never heard or seen a container structure. And so in those particular areas, it does become a little bit challenging. And but we build and engineer to local building codes. And so our product is not, our homes are not manufactured, they're not HUD standards, they're houses, and they sit on permanent foundations. And so when we approach, and when they don't know exactly what we're doing, we approach them and try to determine how much we'll be able to do in factory versus on site. Ideally, you do as much as you can in factory, you close the walls, and off you go, so that the you get better pricing.
Yeah.
The more you control in factory, the better your price is. Unfortunately, sometimes these building officials need to really understand the plumbing, the electrical. They don't really, they just haven't seen this before. And so we have to leave the walls open, and then we rely on local contractors to finish off the build. And as Michael was saying, sometimes you enter these areas with HOAs, CCNRs, etc., and there the challenge really becomes more the metal siding that they don't like to see. That's easy. You just dress it up and you wrap it with whatever product. Sometimes you have to abide by the roofs, that neighboring properties have. And so again, the roof is a separate structure from the container. And so you can do whatever it is that you choose to do. Pitch, shed,
So have you done many tiny houses? Is that the bulk of your business, or are you doing more of the modular build and assembling these in different configurations?
We really don't do tiny homes. I mean, again, the terminology is used a little bit, it varies how people use it, but usually tiny homes are on wheels and they don't sit on a permanent foundation, and they follow more of an RV code, and we don't do those at all. We really do homes. But, some homes can be 600 square feet, but the majority of what we do are houses.
Yeah, the first time I saw the shipping containers used in residential construction, I was in Texas, and they, certainly an architect involved, and definitely not an inexpensive build. This was a, multi-million-dollar home, probably around 8,000 square foot. And, and I saw these containers stacked up in different, kind of design. And that's the first thing I thought of. I said, man, that looks like a shipping container. And that was a couple years ago. And sure enough, I mean, I see them being integrated into, and we'll talk a little bit more about that and how people can integrate these different products in even their existing home with additions and things like that. So Steve, how about you? Let's talk about the ICF. Is there this was kind of like a construction method that, I mean, this has been used for a long time, right?
It has. I understand they developed them in the 1970s. Very popular in Canada, of course, where heating is a major issue in the winter. But it's been around a long time. People still don't know about it. I talked to contractors, have no familiarity with it. So our main obstacle, it's just a different building system. So finding people who are willing, contractors that are willing to take on the challenge. We get phone calls from several hours away begging us to come do the installation because they just don't know of anyone that is qualified or actually open to learning to do ICF construction. It's not difficult. It's lightweight. Our blocks are 4 feet long, 16 inches tall, with either 6-inch or 8-inch cores. Normally, they can go up to any core width that you want. They only weigh 7 pounds, so you're basically picking up 6 cinder blocks, and it weighs 7.5 pounds. So it's very lightweight work. The older I get, the more I enjoy it because it's not like lifting a 10-foot wall that's 20 feet long. You need 6 guys. So it's enjoyable work. The benefit is the R value of the walls. The performance R value is so high. The strength of the walls. Hurricanes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know why this isn't being used all over Hurricane Alley. I mean, that just makes no sense to me. And we have engineered strap hangers and different types of truss attachments to wet set concrete for those kind of areas. Very quiet. Bulletproof. I mean, there are just a lot of benefits to having a concrete wall.
So let's talk about the cost a little bit, and it's we'll go around with this. The first thing I think of is this competitive to wood frame construction? And like I said, shortly ago when we were looking at, 2x4s, being $14 for a 2x4x8, something crazy like that, where, I had clients telling me that their building lumber package loan went up $100,000 from when, they started talking to their builder just months before we really started to see it, the prices spike and peak. And now they're coming back down, or have really drastically come down. So, how do some of these, and just kind of, and I know, and Steve, we'll start with you. I know that you guys do give some type of square foot pricing, an average of what it costs to build this, because my client just inquired from a half a dozen ICF builders. But so can you just kind of talk about that, as how it compares in cost? And guys, when we're talking about building a house, we refer to like a square foot cost, like per square foot. So if you're building a 2,000 square foot house and it costs $100 a square foot, it's a $200,000 build, right? So, but Steve, just kind of go over some comparisons to your product, the concrete house versus a standard wood frame house.
Sure. Yes, a typical house, whether if it was completely built traditionally or you went from footer to roof with ICF, you could expect 3 to 5% extra and additional if you go ICF. The blessing of that is you will save considerably in your utility costs. So your initial mortgage will be slightly higher, but your electricity bill will be lower. So in essence, it's fairly even. And if you're going to stay in the house, I've read, I haven't done the math, but 3 to 5 years, you've already recouped that additional cost.
So when you say 5%, so if you're looking at a $200 per square foot build cost, so you're saying $210 a square foot using ICF.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So how about you, Catalina?
For us, a lot depends on whether we are able to finish the entire home in factory or not. Because if we can't, then we're relying on local labor, and the price, it varies. But assuming a complete factory build, we're right around, I would say, $250 a square foot. And that is a finished home with cabinetry, bathrooms, the roof, etc.
Wow.
Not the site work.
Yeah.
So in parts of the country, that is considered extremely high, and it just doesn't work. In other parts of the country, namely, again, this coast, cost to build a traditional home is probably, you're looking at $350 to $400 a square foot these days. And so it really depends.
So in California, it's huge savings, half.
It is.
And, what about, I know one of the things through COVID that we experienced was a shortage of shipping containers. Have you seen where, and for many reasons, right? They were on ships out at sea. Their products weren't being sold. So these containers were full, right? And the demand was high to ship. Have you seen where these are becoming more accessible?
Barely. It's starting to. But again, when you're building, when you're using these containers to build houses, you're very limited in the types of containers you can build with. You have to either use new or one-way dry goods. And so that limits the supply even further.
Yeah.
And the costs have doubled. And that's one of the reasons why we've started to venture into steel modular construction.
So how many, and what would you say the percentage? So, or just what would be a typical square foot size of a containerized home? on average that you're doing?
We're building a 10,000 square foot home in
Wow.
Florida, and we're doing homes that are as small as, 640, 800 square feet. But I would say that the majority of people that come to us and want us to design a home, you're looking between 800 to 1,800 square feet. And they're looking for efficiency, smaller footprint.
So what about you, Michael? How does your barndominium compare? I know when we were talking before, you were saying you're almost building a house in a house. Is that, yeah. So does that mean that your costs are higher?
Well, no, the advantage of a steel frame building depends a lot on span and how we configure the size of the structure itself. And our salespeople are really skilled at, taking a space plan developed by a customer and fitting a steel building. What we do is we kind of wrap the interior construction. That's what we do. And we take advantage of the ability to span, 30, 40, even 50 feet economically using steel. And that's where steel is really its most efficient. And then we also work hard to minimize the impact of complicated slopes in roofing. If we can stay with simplified roof interfaces, we save a lot of money because they frame quickly, they engineer well. We can use cold form secondary framing efficiently, those kinds of things. And when we do that, we will have a pretty significant savings on the building shell itself. And then it's very simple to go inside and finish because you just do ordinary stick construction inside, and there are many, many people who can do that. And then the steel building, of course, goes up quick, and we get closed in quickly, and then they can work a lot faster in terms of finishing it out and save time, which also saves a bit of money as well.
So would you be able to say how much an average barndominium would be per square foot for, let's say, a 2,500 square foot house?
Well, 2,500 feet is that's a great size for us. We do well there. And I would say we might save as much as 10% of the total construction cost. Again, it'll vary by slope and the metal roofing material that's chosen. The span, again, is very important. So it ranges from maybe 10 or 15% savings to about an equal. I just had a job. One of my salespeople just ran into a buyer, and it had an architect who had really had some good understanding of how to use steel and metal buildings by base spacing and those kinds of things. But then they went ahead and made the project difficult by slope matching and offset ridge lines and doing all kinds of things like that. And by the time we got done with it, and created a look on the exterior that looked just like stick-built construction, we were really as costly as stick-built construction. So there was really no advantage by using our product for a cost standpoint. So it depends on complexity. A lot of it does.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's with anything. I mean, certainly, if you're going to buy the most expensive fixtures, your square foot price is going to go up. But it's nice to know. I mean, what we're really hearing is that these products, and we're going to get into some of the benefits over frame, wood frame construction, which is really going to be exciting to talk about. But it's nice to know that these are options that really are at least the same price or some savings. And I think, guys, when you start hearing about some of these efficient structures, how they're saving you money on energy costs, I think, and noise reduction and safety and, no rot and things that, when we look at houses now that, are 30, 40 years old. I mean, the amount of wood rot that could be within the house or, termite damage and things like that. So let's kind of dive into some of those things. Let's first talk about energy efficiency. And I want to start with you, Catalina, because, I'm kind of curious, like, how do you make a shipping container energy efficient? And you're in an area where, in California, where, I mean, you do go from, the different extremes. It gets hot and it gets cool, right? So how do you insulate these structures and you make them efficient?
Well, we are in California, and California does have some of the most stringent, restrictive, and progressive energy codes in the country. And so when we design, we use basically what we're required to do. And we take that when we work in other states as well. And so the path is sort of dictated by these requirements that we have. And so, I mean, some of them would be, we have to use solar, for example. I mean, that is a requirement. EV charging stations, that's a requirement. I have I've listed them, so I won't forget the majority of them. But, glass that uses minimum U values, insulation that uses maximum R values. Our windows and doors are thermally broken so that to interrupt the heat transfer, and on and on and on. And we use mini splits. And so we try to take this big, metal box, right, that does capture all this heat, and with all these different systems, we minimize.
So you're using foam insulation?
We do. We have to. One of the reasons we use foam insulation is that if you use rigid insulation, you're not entering into all of the cavities, and there's a chance of moisture settling in and causing trouble. And so we use spray foam insulation, and it just penetrates into all of the cavities. And then if you'd like, you can use that. But yes, spray foam is certainly. And we insulate the walls, the ceiling, above carriage, undercarriage, basically everywhere.
So it is important. I mean, so you said it. I heard that one of the most important things is making sure that it's sealed up really well, because moisture can be a problem in those containers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you really have to know what you're doing with that. And then basically you're building then a wood wall within that.
Yeah, we actually have to frame it out. And we try to use studs as much as possible. Being in California, we try to avoid as much lumber as we can because of all the fires that we've been having. And then you build basically like Michael does in his work. We build a house inside a container. So there's studs, then there's all the MEPs, and then there's the walls, etc.
So here we're using 2x6 exterior framing. So when you're building a shipping container home, what size can you use? 2x4 construction? Are you using 2x3s? I mean, so is it
2x4s?
2x4 on exterior walls.
Yes.
So is your insulation coming all the way then to the front face of that 2x4?
Yeah, we lose 6 inches on each side. So even though a shipping container is 8 feet, we actually end up only with 7 feet of interior space if you're using a single container.
So you're still looking for that same R value essentially that you're getting from a 2x6 construction. Interesting. How about you, Michael? Is that pretty much the same way with you and the steel building?
Yeah, it is. We don't really, our wall construction is not generally an issue, but we have a roof issue to deal with because metal heats up. And in the, in the northern climates, the interior heat, wants to migrate out and into the cold. And in the summer in northern and in southeastern United States, western United States, the opposite. We have penetration of heat. And we can create in a roof, we really embrace a lot of very conventional type systems. There are composite systems that insulate cavities. We can use blanket insulation under a panel. But what's happened in our business is that the coatings that are used to actually color the roof surface or finish the roof surface, the steel panel of the roof, there's cool coatings available that have great emissivities that return heat to the environment, so we don't get that penetration of heat from the outside, in the southern United States, and the migration of the heat from the inside out in the northern United States in the winter months. So that's very important because it gives us the ability to meet most of the energy codes and provide, pretty significant R values in both the roof and the wall. So we do well with that. It's really not a huge problem for us, but it's something we have to address with each individual buyer in terms of what their interests are.
And Steve, I know you're sitting here going, man, I can't wait to talk next about this. He's building concrete houses. He wants to talk about efficiency. So
Yeah.
How about you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the foam, the EPS foam, expanded polystyrene, it by itself has around in the mid 20s, 22, 25 R value by itself. But then when the mass of the concrete is in the wall, the performance of that tests have shown just really exceed any other type of standard construction into the 40s. Some people have said 50. I don't know that I quite go there, but definitely into the 30s and 40s. The great thing is BuildBlock has developed some great buck material for windows and doors. So you have a wall that there's no thermal bridging. I mean, it's an independent from inside to outside, other than the tabs of the forms, but that's very minor. So there is, in a standard construction wall, every 16 inches you have a stud where there is that bridge. But in a solid poured wall with foam inside and out, you just have an amazing ability to resist that heat on the outside or the cold, and how it affects the air on the inside of the home. Now, obviously, the weak spot in any house, we all know, is the roof. So we really support exceeding beyond code in the type and thickness R value in the ceilings of houses built. And then, Catalina brought up, the quality of windows and doors, huge. And then sealing around those. Another thing, part of this is the air infiltration. I mean, there is no air movement through our walls. It's solid concrete, there again, just around windows and doors. So it is recommended often to do air exchange systems with the opening and closing of doors, with bathroom fans. A lot of times it's really not needed. There is enough outside air introduced in, but our homes are very tight, virtually through our walls. If there is no penetration, there is no air infiltration.
So I'm kind of curious, to watch this house being built that, my client is building locally here in ICF, because I do have a lot of questions about that, with, the temperature inside. What would you say that, is there a rule of thumb of an average maintained temperature without any climate control? If you're building, let's say, a 2-story house, basement, 2-story house on that main floor. I mean, you have, the contractor that's building this house said, well, it's like being in the basement, on each floor. And I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that, because I know heat rises, and I'm thinking to myself, well, in theory, that would be great if it would be an average of 60 degrees. And then, you're trying to heat from 60 or cool, in that, I mean, we wouldn't need to cool in that range, but even at 70, if it stayed there, if it's 100 degrees outside here and I don't have my air conditioning on in a framed house and I walk inside, it could be 90 degrees inside. It takes a lot of efficiency, or a lot of energy rather, not efficiency, a lot of energy to cool that down to where, you even want to be inside. Is there, you think about concrete and being in a basement where it's a more moderate temperature all year, is there a rule of thumb what you guys are saying to that main level as far as it maintaining a certain degree temperature?
I don't know that I've heard that spoken about. I do know that I am in my office right now that we built ICF, and every day I come in and I don't let the air conditioning run during the night. I just come in the morning and let it run when I'm here. It's been summer. We've had mid 90s during the day, and the air conditioner runs, but not real often. But in the morning, I don't let it run all night, which with most homes you would. Of course, no one being here. Like I said before, I know that the amount of effort or time that it takes for the outside to influence the inside, definite tests. I don't have access to them, but we have viewed tests that have been done that the ICF walls definitely have the most resistance to the exterior temperature affecting the interior.
So Catalina, what type of air quality control are you utilizing in a shipping container? I think of it as like this sealed unit, and which is good, right? In a lot of ways, because what we've learned, I guess, through the years, back maybe 40 or 50 years ago, we maybe thought it was such a great idea that our house, really breathed through the walls. It was really, the airflow. I mean, you could stand near the outlets and, feel in the wintertime, the cold air blowing through the outside wall, through the electrical outlet. And you're like, oh, that must be good because we're getting fresh air in the house. And then we realized that this is terrible for us, because as the insulation and the different, toxins are breaking down, we're actually bringing that in. And now we're realizing that, we have sinus problems, and, so we really want to control. We're learning now that we really want to seal it up. Now we have these blower door tests when they're building new houses where, you have to pass this test to, make sure that your house is sealed up to a degree where you're not having this energy loss and then these, toxins floating around, coming through your exterior walls. But it's important that we control that air movement and kind of bring it in, filter it, and get rid of the bad air and bring in the good air, right? So what are you doing or designing or suggesting, recommending for the shipping containers that to me would be like seriously sealed up, except where you cut holes and put windows and doors in?
Right. So our design philosophy is really to open these up, because if not, it really, really feels that you're in a tomb. Right? I don't know if you've ever been in a container when they just close these doors, and it's just very, very stifling.
It's what I used on construction sites for years.
And so
put our tools inside.
It's really narrow and just very dark. The good thing is that, yes, these are very, the walls are just, they're strong, they're durable, nothing goes in, nothing comes out. But we really cut into the containers a lot. So our philosophy is to provide a lot of windows, a lot of sliders. There's all of these fantastic strange doors out there right now, the pivot doors, the accordion doors, the whatever doors, right? And so it creates a indoor-outdoor living experience. And in the climate that we've designed for, being California, Arizona, Nevada, you can definitely enjoy the indoor-outdoor experience. And so we try to also achieve the highest possible ceilings, and that in itself creates a lot of airflow.
Yeah. Are you doing any kind of mechanical fan systems or venting systems?
Yeah, in bathrooms, of course, all bathrooms, even if they have windows, they have venting systems, in kitchens as well.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, it's nice to know you have the vents in the bathroom. I mean, going to some of these old houses, they don't have that, right?
Right. No,
a window.
We like venting. But yes, and so there's a lot of air circulation, and that's important.
How about you, Michael, with airflow?
Our construction is in the inside, of course, is very conventional, and we use a lot of conventional systems, or our owners finish out with a lot. We do have a lot of open space to deal with, but one of the things that's a lot of people don't realize is a metal roof, if it's going to be weather tight, it has to be completely sealed to the environment. You can't have moisture drawn in, for example, by negative pressures and all of that. So if you're going to have weather tightness performance, you're going to have a good seal on the roof system, and the roof system to the siding and all of the other materials that are associated with the project. So I don't consider it to be an outstanding benefit of Barndominiums and steel frame approach for construction, but it's also not a liability. We can deal with the R values, and then of course the International Building Code in its residential version has a lot of specific requirements for air changes and air handling and those kinds of things, and our conventional build outs conform to those like they would with any other system.
Gotcha. And Steve, how about you with controlling the that airflow in and out of the house?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of times it is recommended. Different engineers, when they get their hands on an ICF house, they highly recommend air exchange systems through either it's a 6-inch, 5-6-inch duct. A lot of people have ended up not using them because, like I said, there seems to be enough exchange of air through other venting and just common opening and closing of doors. But for those people who are very finely tuned in their heating systems and in regulating the air and having it all filtered, then absolutely. And it's the perfect environment for that, the perfect building system to be extremely in control of what air comes in and out.
So I have a question here from Chris. So he says, I'm a modular builder in the Maryland area. The entire house, including electrical, plumbing, rough-in, is improved in all 50 states. I may not have read it right the first time, but I understand what Chris is saying. He's saying that his modular build, and I guess this could be for any of you, but he's approved his modular house, and the engineering, I guess, is following the IBC and is approved in all 50 states, including District of Columbia. I guess for each one of you, your products, I would say, are approved in all 50 states as well.
Yes, ours are.
Catalina, would you say?
Yeah, we abide by local building codes, and we follow those regulations.
And Steve,
Yes,
I would, I see your products going in, locally around here. So
yes, yeah. I'm not aware of any trouble anywhere in the U.S.
Coast to coast.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got a couple comments here. Wait, double trouble. How do you keep these different homes insulated? Hopefully we answered that for you. We appreciate you watching, and thanks for this comment. Warm in the winter, cool in the summer. We're using still traditional heating and cooling systems, I would imagine. And so are there any restrictions? We can use gas, oil, electric, any of the traditional systems to heat and cool? How about
just briefly with shipping containers? It's very hard to use traditional HVAC, for example, because there's no room for ducts. Unless you lift the house, somehow the ducts are under, and so we end up by really using mini splits. So you have the condenser outside and the cassettes in different rooms. And what's nice about it is that you can go from room to room as you travel through the home and not always having to use the. How
about as far as things like fireplaces? Can you incorporate that in any of the types of construction? I would imagine so, right? I mean, cut a hole, you can do pretty much anything. We appreciate your question there. We've got another one. Great information, Michael. think you guys, you're answering a lot of questions here. And guys, if you have any questions, feel free to comment them in. Really what I'd like for each one of you to do. I mean, do you guys have any questions for each other based on the different types of products? I mean, have you ever utilized your different building materials in the same house? Maybe used concrete and steel, or a building shipping container in with concrete or steel, other steel building structures?
We had a client in Minnesota that was very interested in using ICF on the ground floor, part garage, and part living, kitchen, etc. And then on the second story, using containers. They like that look. And I know there's our competitor, Hanamobo, located in Canada. They do something similar. So we designed it. We never got to build it, but we did design something like that. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about Barndominiums. Do you have any on this side of the country?
I've only been with Steel Co. a year, so I'm not absolutely certain of where every barn door built that is built or where it's been built. But we do quote barn door activity virtually everywhere in the United States. There's a lot of activity for them in the Southeast. Most all of them are on remote type sites. These are people that'll buy 5 or 6 acres of land, in some cases 40 acres, or they own 40 acres of a wooded site. And they really want to get off and build a home in a secluded area. They will oftentimes, with our clients, incorporate shops and workplaces, storage for boats and all kinds of things. They'll incorporate that into their design. So part of their structure is living space, and part of it is working space. We built a structure or sold a structure for a race car driver, and he keeps all of his race cars inside his building. And it's a very interesting structure to look at it. There's a couple of TikToks out there on that particular project, and I think I sent some information in on that particular project. It's very interesting. It's a beautiful home, and I would encourage you to take a look at it. It's really a nice marriage of workspace and residential space, kind of set off in a remote location. And that's the most popular use of what we do.
And we do have everybody's information in the show notes. So guys, we encourage you to reach out to our guests here and really kind of explore your options. As a real estate agent myself, I know that, I like to know where I can direct my clients, for alternatives. Housing, there's such a huge shortage. I mean, even before the pandemic, we experienced a shortage of houses for people to buy, especially affordable housing. And, we've seen more now than we have in prior years of people that are looking at lots that are available, subdividing what they have to sell off a piece of land and have someone build a house. So, these options are out there for you. Here we go. Dan is our client that is building an ICF house right now. And he has a question for Steve. He says, with Steve also being a builder, curious if he has seen ICF homes be appraised higher than stick frame. And this is a great question. And I think we all should answer that, because this is an issue, right? So if an appraiser doesn't see a house that he's used to appraising, I had this situation where a client had an English Tudor home in the neighborhood of all traditional colonial homes, and we had the hardest time getting this house to appraise. In fact, it didn't. And we tried to rebuttal it, but the fact of the matter is it just wasn't easy for this appraiser to appraise, because he didn't know how to appraise a English Tudor. Are you having, Steve, we'll start with you. Are you finding that if this ICF does cost more, I know you're saying that there is some savings. I know you know your business. I look at this, being a traditional stick builder myself. I'm looking at it going, I don't know how it can be cheaper, but okay, let's say it is, but let's say it's not. Let's say it ends up being more expensive. And we have a house that, we're selling, it's ICF, and it's maybe 10% more, 15% more than the same stick frame construction. Are we going to have a hard time getting that appraiser to find more value in an ICF house?
The key is education, just getting appraisers, getting realtors, getting builders educated on the value of ICF, I think is the key. I was actually thinking of even asking that question to you today. We have heard in this area, in the Harrisonburg area, there are a lot of ICF homes, and appraisers are catching on to that people desire to live in them. They're quiet, they're energy efficient. Yeah, they have a higher value in people's minds that have lived in an ICF home. Most people I know that have lived in one want to live in one the next time if they move. So, but it's all about education and people understanding the value of that ICF home.
I find that is a challenge because, we're very limited. We do get, as a broker, I do have appraisers that will call me from time to time and ask certain questions. But, with me not having a whole lot of experience with the ICF product or any of these other products, I think about, how will that appraise? Because most people need mortgages and, people are spending their cash. We've seen appraisal gaps happen this year where, I haven't really experienced much of that in the past. Commercially, yes, I've seen where commercial buildings don't appraise, but the people want it and they'll put the cash up for, the difference. But we're seeing this now in residential, or at least through this tight market that we've experienced, where buyers are frantically making offers well over prices that have sold in that neighborhood. And we are seeing where that was an issue and they're paying cash in that situation. But trying to educate an appraiser, I don't know that me as a broker will be successful at that, where, you as an industry really may be more of an industry issue to say, hey, look, if we want to get these houses built in areas where ICF is not popular, or any of them, shipping containers, barndominiums, I think it is going to be an issue where you're going to need to start to lobby those associations, these appraisal associations, and educate the appraisers. How about you, Catalina? Have you found any issues with appraisal and shipping container homes?
Yes. And very much what Steve said, it is education. It's trying to show them that this is actually a house. And so about 70% of the people that come to us need mortgages, or they need a construction loan. And so we develop really thorough design documents without going all the way to construction documents, just in the event, that this does not go through. We don't want people to spend more money than they have to. We don't necessarily engineer either because of that cost factor, and work with lenders to understand that, look, this is a house, and it has all the windows, the doors, the exits, the roof, all the materials of a home.
Permanent foundation.
Exactly. And slowly, little by little, at least the ones that we're working with around here are appraising them as a new build. So, but again, it is education, and it does take a while.
How about you, Michael?
I agree completely with my two colleagues. There's a huge educational issue that needs to get resolved. We have the biggest problem with lenders. If there is a mortgage involved, they don't want to lend on a quote unquote steel building. In fact, one of my salespeople uncovered a bank that specializes in lending on barndominium type structures and steel homes. because they've been educated and they realize the value, that there's a lot of long-term value. The depreciation is considerably less. On the initial cost of construction, there's just a whole lot of things that matter. But it is a process of educating. We've actually had a couple of deals where we've run into some sort of real severe issues with the bank, and we've had to help our clients, educate their lenders as best we possibly can. So I agree with them. It's the process of getting out and letting the market, the people that support our industry, become fully aware of what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, look, I'm going to say to fellow agents too, I mean, look into these different options for our clients and, share the websites, let's see if we can't, show more options than a traditional stick frame home or wood framed home. And guys, and another thing, and we're going to do a follow up to this with, each of you. And I know, Steve, you and I have spoken a little bit more in depth on if you're a contractor out there, this could be an option for you to learn more about these alternative building products and to build a niche market for yourself and, and really expand your client base. I think that there needs to be a lot more education, especially, Steve, you and I were talking with ICF. I mean, Dan, the builder building one now locally, he had a really hard time getting someone locally to do this that wasn't driving 3 or 4 hours, that had the education to actually build that product. And I think, if we realize that we have a need here for more home construction, we do need to lean on the associations to say, look, we need alternatives to affordable housing. We need to cut some of this red tape that we're experiencing that are blocking and preventing these different products from coming into, the industry. And you guys, I mean, it's great to see that you're doing it, you're making it, you're doing your part, and we appreciate you guys. What a great show tonight. I mean, this is something different. We've never done it. We talked about having a panel on and how would that work and something like this. And we accomplished a lot in an hour. I can't thank you enough for being on the show. Any final thoughts? Michael, we'll start with you.
Well, the final thought for anybody that's interested in a barndominium, the place to start for us is with a space plan. We need to know what you want to do inside the structure so that we can build a wrapper to go around the outside of it. And, a piece of land is obviously an important part of it as well. And once those two pieces are in place, then my salespeople can really start the process of optimizing the use of our product to fit your space and your space plan. So we've got a planning checklist that's available out on our website, and it is really helpful for people who are thinking about this approach to construction, listing out and helping them with the steps in the right order so that we can do the best job for them and optimize their initial costs. That's the way it starts for us.
Great. Catalina?
For us, it starts also with the property and making sure that the property that clients select has access. A lot of times we forget that we have to crane these in. And if there's, the streets are narrow, there's no staging area. If there's, power lines, tall trees, whatever that may be, it's going to be very hard or very expensive to get through. And so it's really selecting a site if you want to build with containers that is conducive to building with containers.
Great. And Steve, we'll wind up with you.
Yeah, and as a continuation of what you all said, to just plan well. Don't design, have someone design a house and then, at the last minute, think you can convert it to another system. I get so many people like, well, can you take my plans and turn it into ICF? No, I can't. I don't have the time to do that. I have a draftsman that I work with locally, but please plan that into the process early and don't wait to the last minute. There are plenty of draftsmen that know ICFs and can design that in, and I'm sure with you guys the same way, to do that early and not at the last minute. Very important.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for watching, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you.